The World Class Community Show is designed to bring you the latest talks on community building. Join our host and his guests ranging from leaders at global enterprises to niche underground community builders. In these episodes, they discuss the creation, the importance, the future, and much more about community building. If you're ready to learn the depths of attracting and engaging crowds around your brand, then make sure to tune in.
Welcome to the World Class Community Show, where we invite expert community builders to share their experiences, knowledge, and expertise they've built up through the years. Today we have an awesome guest, Tim Buysse. He's the founder and CEO of Heat.gg, which is an esports team or organization. Their purpose is to build a community of heroes united by their passion for esports and gaming. He calls himself an esports dinosaur and was captain of the very first team that became world champion in League of Legends. So welcome to the show, Tim. Really nice to have you here.
Thank you, Niels. Really nice to be here. Looking forward to have this conversation together with you.
Yeah, I saw it on your LinkedIn. I loved the term esports dinosaur. How long was it ago that you were world champion?
How long was it ago? This was a bit over 10 years ago.
Yeah, wow. While esports is now booming, it was still one of the early days of competitive esports, or for Europe at least?
Yeah, it was, I think you could call it early days of the bigger events, because I call the early days more than 15 to 20 years ago, where you had to go to the local lands, to the gym clubs to have some offline competitions. So the events that I went to, those were the first Intel Extreme Masters and the ones like that. So that wasn't small anymore, even though the prize money was still small there.
Okay. So we always start with an icebreaker. What community are you a part of that is really unique? Like an underground community? Do you have something for us?
The only community I'm part of is my own community, the Heat community. And yeah, for me that's very unique because me as a founder and as a CEO, I am the direct link between our community and our brands. So I'd say the most unique things we do in Heat is that our community actually helps us shape the future of our brand. Even when we came with the rebrand and a new logo, this was done together with our community. So yeah, in a way I'm the CEO and the founder, but I also feel that I am the community manager of our own brand.
Okay, that's really interesting. How did you help the community get involved in this rebranding? How did you set this up?
So it all started when we entered Counter-Strike. We had a totally different logo, something that was with Hungarian roots in it, and the logo was ugly, but it was also meant to be ugly. It was to scare opponents away. But when you enter a new game and a new scene that doesn't know you, the first comments we get, oh, ugly logo, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's always important, even though you see a lot of comments, whatever you do on the internet, to still listen to these comments and then go back to your own community, no matter how big or small it is, and talk with those people. And the first question should be then, do we need a new logo or not? So this was one of the questions we had with our community. And when we all decided on, yes, we need a new logo, we need a rebrand, then we started working with our graphic designers and our branding agency. We shaped some different directions, and then we created a Google form where the community could submit what they liked the most and also give some feedback on the logos we created. And that's how the community was involved in the new shaping of the logo.
Okay, nice. So really, really active feedback gathering from all the people involved. How big is your community, or how many people are involved with Heat?
Well, it's a hard question, I would say, because if you say how big is your community, if we look at our social media and all the fans, followers we have, you could say we have around 75,000 people. which is pretty big, but I wouldn't call all those people part of our community. I would say most of our active community is on our Discord channel, and there we have around 500 people. And those are really the active people, right? Who are asking questions, who are following our teams, who are joining the watch parties when our teams play. And yeah, they also call themselves the Ultras. So I think there's a difference between our diehard community and our broader community that just likes what we're doing.
Okay. Let's go back these 10, 15 years in history. You've been a professional League of Legends player since the beginnings, and you've played for the two best European teams at that time. One of them was Fnatic. How did your life look like then? Because for a lot of listeners, we got a big marketing audience and a big HR audience. How does the life of a professional esporter at that level look like?
Yeah, and again, back then it was different than today, so you cannot fully compare it. But back then, I don't know if people would say my life was very interesting at that time. So all I did was play games, sometimes up to 16 hours per day. And this was not just playing the game, but this was also streaming. I was one of the first streamers in Belgium as well. And this was mainly 5 to 6 hours of team practice, then another few hours of individual practice, and then some hours of streaming. And sometimes I would do this for 7 days in a week. So it was really sitting behind my PC, eating behind my PC, and going to bed at strange times. I did this for, I would say, 6 months. And whenever we qualified to an event, of course, we had to travel as well. And then my days looked a little bit different because when you travel, you play less. But whenever I was home, I would play up to 16 hours per day.
And did you guys have a coach? Like, could you compare it to football or any other sports? Is it that professional level?
No, back then a coach was not existing in the scene yet. All we had was a manager who would also act a little bit as a coach, but that person didn't help with in-game tactics or strategies. He would mostly help with keeping the team together, and maybe if you have some mental issues or you cannot show up to practice, that's where the manager would step in. So that were the first transitions from seeing, okay, that person is a manager, but we need an actual coach with also knowledge of the game. Because back then, the most team captains, they would also take the coaching, like read the schedules, the practice schedules, analyze the opponents and that kind of stuff. So the team captain was a really hard role back then. But still today, you see teams without a coach where the team captain still has to do all this stuff without a coach. Okay.
What are the best qualities of a team captain? You were one yourself of the most successful teams. What is a good team captain?
Again, a very hard question, and I don't think you can have one answer to that. What is a really good team captain? Because you need to have so many qualities that I think that's also where it transitioned from not just having the team captain, but also having a coach, because this team captain needs to, one, play at the same level of his teammates, but he has to focus on the tactics, he has to focus on the strategies, he has to focus on, are my teammates liking each other? And I think if I can name one good quality for a team captain, it's being calm and being good with people, I would say. Because the team captain, he has to go through a lot of stuff. When you lose a game, it's always the team captain's fault, and this was also back then. It was always on me when we lost games, and you are the team captain. It was always your fault, and then as a player, you're also in the position where you have to change a teammate, and if as a team captain you're changing a teammate, which is a friend of another teammate, then that teammate could start disliking you as a team captain as well, and those are not situations that you want to have. when you're playing at the highest level.
So if you talk about these big events right now, how many people are watching the final live?
Finals are being watched like just live watching. You see peaks of 400 to 500,000 people watching live. And then, of course, over the course of a tournament, it's watched by millions. 10 to 50 million is not exceptional for the biggest tournaments. And even bigger if you, like, for example, League of Legends Champions, I'm pretty sure they go up to 100 million views over the course of their tournament.
Wow, that's spectacular. I think that's a lot bigger numbers than average Joe in the street thinks about if they hear esports and gaming.
Yeah, but I also feel that there is a lot shifting there. If I look around in Belgium and you speak about these numbers, sadly enough, I still see a lot of people saying, okay, wow, this is bigger than I thought. But 10 years ago, this was already the same answer in Belgium as well. So I don't see a lot of evolution there. But when you go to Scandinavia, for example, or you go to China or even to the United States, these are not strange questions anymore. I'd say people that are still amazed in those areas are people that are just not into gaming at all.
Okay. So then after 2 years of being in esports, you decided to create your own multi-gaming company, AbsoluteLegends, and manage the teams. So what motivated you to start this?
So AbsoluteLegends was not a gaming organization to begin with. I started it when I was a professional player in Fnatic. I built a community /news/streaming website because back then you didn't have a lot of websites, like Twitch didn't exist back then, and streaming was just starting. So our website was a place where people could actually find League of Legends streamers. And back then we were in competition with Counterlogic Gaming, for example, from the United States, and TSM, Team Solo Mid. They did the same thing. So there were 2 websites in the United States, and in Europe that was the only website. And it was pretty successful. Back then we had between 10 and 20,000 people visiting per day. But it was pretty hard to manage that website next to your professional career as well. And then after my period with SK Gaming, I had a friend in SK Gaming as well, was Wicked. He played for a very long time in League of Legends, and we decided to build our own team under AbsoluteLegends, and that's a bit where it started. We were our own first team. I transitioned to a manager position, and we started to manage our own team, which was again one of the best teams in Europe. They moved over to Counterlogic Gaming at the end, and they won several big tournaments in Europe and outside of Europe. And from there we started to manage teams. So when they left to Counterlogic Gaming, I tried in a few more games, and we also merged with another esports organization who had a lot of teams. But then we also felt everything we were doing was pretty successful, but we also felt there were so many issues I was not ready for. And you cannot manage everything at once, especially when you're still young and you come from just playing games to all of a sudden have to manage an entire company with a lot of teams and players. I learned the hard way. I would say that was not the best fit.
How long did you run the gaming company then?
I've run it for about 2 to 3 more years after my gaming career. So for a pretty long time, I would say, but it was very nerve-wracking, I would say, keeping the company alive and having to deal with all the players and all the streamers and all the issues we were having by myself, because we never had a big budget. Gaming wasn't big back then. We didn't have a lot of money, so we worked with a lot of freelancers who were coming and going. So it was really hard to build something stable out of that.
Okay. Did you already focus on community back then?
Yes, I always focused on community because when I was a professional player, I was one of the first that streamed. So I had my own community, and my own community was also transitioned already to the website. And together with other streamers, we were transitioning all our people to one place. And that's back then we built the Absolute Legends community, which still has quite some following, but I stopped streaming, so a lot of my community is not active anymore, and yeah.
Do you miss it sometimes, the interaction with them?
No, because I have a new community now, and that's why I don't miss it. But I have to be honest, when I didn't have my community anymore, or my support, I would call them, because it's not just a community, it's also when you go through good days and bad days. I'd say your community is a little bit like your family. You can go there and you can get feedback, and sometimes really good things come out of that. So yeah, when I didn't have it, I missed it, but today I don't miss it because we have our own community, a new community, I would say.
Okay. So then, with all your experience, you have now started the new journey with the Heat.gg. So again, you're in managing an esports team or multiple esports teams. What did you do different from Absolute Legends? So what learnings did you take with you?
Yeah, a lot of learnings. I would say I especially learned how to not do things back then, and also if you want to build something serious, you have to be able to do it serious from the start. So something that was totally different from back then is that we actually started with a budget, and we have a capital, and we have business-minded people behind the company as well, and also myself, of course. I know a lot more about the business side of things than back then. So yeah, I think everything that didn't go right, you have the opportunity to do it different now. And also, I would say your mental is a lot stronger when you went through a lot of things. So it's not that easy to break. And yeah, also something I learned is to never give up, because in the end, even when we were going through rough times, I gave up in a way. So that's the last thing you want to do, because I think you always need to be able to zoom out and check where you came from and where you are today. That's something I couldn't do back then. So that's something I do from week to week or month to month today. Look at where we were January last year, we were nowhere. And then if you look at where we are today, even though we have still a lot of struggles, I would say, it's really nice to look at the progress you're making, even though you're still doing things the wrong way, you're still making mistakes, but focus more on the good things and instead of focusing on the bad things.
Okay. So you, of course, manage the teams. Does it go this far that you also manage the individual players with their own careers, with their own streaming, with their own communities?
Less than before, but of course I'm still here to share experience to people that want to listen to it, because again, gaming today is a lot different than 10 years ago. So I go a lot in discussions with players sometimes. Well, discussions or just open talks where they say, yeah, but it's different today, Tim. It's not back then when you were playing. And they're right. It is different. And something I did wrong is I spent too much hours in a day on the game that in the end weren't all productive hours. And today we try to manage it in a better way. But this is also learning from my own experience that how many hours do you need to spend, and how many of those hours are quality hours. And this is not something I just do by myself. We have an entire coaching team behind Heat as well. And yeah, I share experience where it's needed, but I wouldn't say from day to day I'm a coach or I'm helping our players. I help with the bigger picture, with the bigger plan, and for our day-to-day coaching, we have our own coaching staff. We have coaches that manage the team every day now. So I'm more in talks with the coaches than with the actual players. Like, because that's the most important thing for me, that you have a coach in your organization that has a little bit of the same mindset like you. And my mindset was also always be very hardworking. But if I would be the coach today, I would probably, ask too much from my players. And when I have those conversations with the coach, he can find the right balance between what I want and what the player needs. So, I think we have a pretty nice structure there at the moment.
Okay, nice. You talked about a community of 75,000 regular streamers, about 500 ultras in the Discord channel. Do you have a strategy to actively grow this community, or is this something that follows the results of the team?
We have a strategy. We have a community manager. We have an entire agency that helps us with how we communicate with our community. So yes, we're working on a strategy. We have a strategy, but this is also, I would say, changing, adapting every week to what your community wants, what your community needs. Look what's working and what's not working, focus on what's working and be continuous with that, and try to understand what's not working, why it's not working. So I think it's a very hard job, focusing or working with your community. And something I've learned is that the community likes when they can speak to the people that are in the organization. So that's why I feel, for myself, I have to be there every day in my community. If I have an ID or our players have an issue, for example, it's instead of going to your everyone in your company first, you can also go to your community and ask them what they think about it, how they feel about it.
Okay, wow. So this is actively steering business decisions also. So you go actively to the community, not only for a logo design, but helping determine directions of Heat.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that our community has the final say, like we still have the final say, but I think you can only make the best decisions for your company with a lot of feedback. And from all that feedback, this can be investor feedback, this can be graphic design feedback, this can be agency feedback, but this can also be community feedback. And I value our community feedback very high. And whenever we have our daily meetings and we have issues where we don't see a solution to, I'm always the first guy that says, okay, guys, let's bring this issue to our community. Let's see what they think and what they feel about it. And let's make a decision after that. It was the same with the logo, right? Because we have our own graphic designers and we have an agency with their graphic designers as well. And sometimes there is not a match because our graphic designer wants to go a direction, they want to go a direction. And of course, then it would be easy for me to say, okay, this is the direction we go. But that's not the kind of the decision I want to make, because it's just choosing between A or B. And in the end, if you think about who are you doing this for, it's always for your fans and your community. And fans, community, customers, whatever you want to call them. So I think their feedback is the most important. But even there, because asking feedback is nice, but it's also a dangerous thing, right? Because you can ask your community and then you can go in 100 directions. So in the end, you still need to choose a direction. But I would say getting more feedback is what helps you make the right decision. And even if you make the wrong decision, then okay, nothing bad about it. Go with your community again and ask them, okay, this didn't work, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, that's really powerful. I was wondering, do you have an example where your personal preference was to go in direction A, but the community really committed to option B and you switched your mind?
Yes, I have this every week, I would say. Because if I would just do what I want today, this week, next week, then Heat wouldn't be what it is today. Like Heat is today because I constantly want to go into a direction, and sometimes I try to push into a direction, but when my community, my staff, agencies, they're not aligned with what I want, then we talk about it. And I think that's the best thing you can do, because if you base a company on one person, his decisions or what he wants to do, I think it becomes very hard then. And I've learned this as well, not in my esports career, but I had a long career in Volvo as well. And I was also in a leading position there. And in my leading position, 90% of the time we had to follow what the upper management decided, what engineering decided, and you had to bring it to the people that were working in the factory, the people that were assembling the cars every day. And those people, they were doing it for 8 hours per day, and they couldn't even choose if they would have to pick material A from the second row or from the third row. I'm not going to say that this wasn't always the case, but a lot of times the people just had to deal with it, with what other people decided that didn't have to do it. And I think that experience learned me a lot from what I do today. If we show our jersey, our community is buying the jersey, so why would they not have a say in it on, okay, this is what we like and this is what we not like?
Mm-hmm. Would you say the value of an esports team is the size of their community, or is this a bit too straightforward?
I wouldn't call it the size of your community, but I would call it much more about how engaged is your community. Because I see a lot of organizations, teams that have 100,000 followers or more, but when you look at their reactions on Twitter, if you look at what's happening around it, it's not much. And then you have to ask your question, like, you have all these followers, but if we come to the market with something, how many of these people are going to buy it? And in the end, it's still a business, right? You need to make money as well. So if I would much rather have 1,000 people that follow us, that do everything we do together, of course, but when we go to the market with a product, those 1,000 people are going to buy what you present them, and hopefully you did it together with them. And if you have 100,000 people and you come with an NFT, for example, that none of these 100,000 people want, why are you bringing an NFT to your public?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you measure engagement? Like, do you have KPIs where you say, okay, community engagement was up this week, was down this week, or is it more organically you follow it?
No, like a lot of these socials, especially Twitter. Like, Twitter is one of our best socials we have, but also TikTok. You can follow the engagement rate. So this is something we follow 100%. But I also measure it, and you can measure it the best, I would say, at the moments your teams are playing. This is also where your community becomes the most active, and you can see instantly just by the amount of messages you're getting or people joining the watch party. Is your community growing? Is your engagement rate growing, or are you going the other direction? And it's never straight to the top, right? It's always, it goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. But if between January and December it's up, then it's still a good trajectory, I would say.
Okay. I don't know esports very deeply, but you said you can switch teams, so there are transfers, I assume, just like in other sports. Do new players bring their communities? Do the communities follow the player, or do they stick with the team?
In the beginning, every player, well, not every, but most players or streamers have their own community, and if they would transfer from, for example, if the Counter-Strike team would transfer from Heat to Fnatic, I'm pretty sure we would lose 70 to 80% of our community. So it's very important to keep your players and to build something what makes people stick from someone else's community. Because as long as you're doing something with the person, and this is, you can also see this in sponsorships as well, right? So as long as Nike is sponsoring Messi, for example, Messi, his community will buy stuff from Nike, they will be connected to Nike, and Nike will keep a certain percent of that community, even if he switches over to Adidas. But most of his community will switch because Messi switched. So you can never keep 100% of someone's community, and that should also not be the goal. You should just create something, and when people see what you're doing, they will make the decision for themselves if they want to be a part of it or not. And if you want to learn, then you should always ask the people that didn't become a part of your community why they don't want to be a part of your community, and then again, you can decide to make changes. But if you want to make changes, don't forget to ask your community that's already there if they even want to have these changes.
Mm-hmm. Is there some form of curation in the community, or is everybody welcome? It depends, of course. You're quite a big community, so I would assume less curation. But is there somebody checking, like, there's no hate messages, or this behavior is not tolerated here, or is it quite open for everybody?
But it's open for everybody, I would say. But of course, if you're very toxic, or you're a racist, or you're a killer, or whatever, you don't fit our community. And I think none of these people fits communities. But for me, also, it doesn't mean because you were a racist or you were toxic in the past and you don't have a place anymore in our community. So everyone is welcome, but of course you have to be nice, I would say. You have to be nice, you have to be friendly, and you have to be able to communicate in a respectful way. If you just come to be toxic or to do things that no one wants to see, I believe, then of course there will be no place for you. But we will have people in the company that will just ban them instantly. But if it would be me, for example, I would just ask the person, like, is there a reason why you're acting like this? And sometimes, because I always believe there is more to a message someone is sending, even if it's a racist message, a toxic message, I'm always interested in what's behind it. Like, why is this person writing it? And again, the easy way is just to ban that person and to say, yeah, you don't have a place in our community. But I think if you want to change something, you just don't ban everyone, but you try to reason with them. And of course, I don't have the time to reason with everyone, but if I see an opportunity, then I will always try to reason and try to understand why someone is like that. And sometimes you have some really funny answers.
Yeah, I can assume. So we talked a little bit about strategy. Is there some tactics that you can share about how you are going to grow the community, how you are going to attract new members to it, or is this still very top secret?
No, it's not top secret. So one of the bigger plans we have, but we don't have the resources right now, is to have a Twitch stream, which already goes live a few times per week, but have a Twitch stream that is from Monday to Sunday online and shows different content for our community, and also fun content. Like, they can get to know our graphic designer, they can get to know our social media manager, they can get to know our agency we work with, some talk shows on it. So there is a big TV plan that I have in the back of my head that I want to work out, but we're taking small steps here. Also, every time our teams are playing, we want to put our own channel online, and this is something that happens, I would say, 70% of the time already. So whenever we're playing, we have our community manager putting the stream online, and instead of always being on Discord, we try to gain a lot of people from Twitch as well, because it's one of the biggest platforms. And I would say that's our biggest tactic, to gain new members that are 100% coming for heat, because then you're creating your own community and you're not stealing, I would say, from people that already have a community.
I love the idea of it's your own television network, actually.
Yeah, but for a smaller amount of viewers, right? So you have to know when you do something like this, you will be streaming for a long time, between, I would say, at the very beginning, even between 5 and 10 people, and then it will go up to 100 people, and you're putting a lot of resources for let's say 100 to 500 people watching, and you have to be willing to do that. And if you say, no, this is too small, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the effort, then it will be very hard to build a stable community.
Well, it's the challenge of a television station, actually. They have their peak streams, and then, but they, of course, they have a bigger audience, but maybe locally. So I really like the idea. I like the idea, and I'm confident that this could be a huge step in empowering the community and gaining more engagement and getting them to, Heat becomes a lifestyle, actually. Which you can tune into every moment of the day. So I really like the idea. I think it's very future minded. And that brings me to the question. Okay, you were in the days of Fnatic, in the beginning days. You are here now with Heat. How do you see the future of esports? Is it getting bigger? Is it getting? How do you project that the world of esports will look like, and how it will integrate with in general the world?
Yeah. So esports is growing massively, especially because I've been there from the beginning to what I see it is today. I would say financially and just community-wise, it's growing by 20% about each year. So this is a lot. And how I see the future of esports, well, I think esports is already a future and a dream of a lot of people. Like soccer is a dream for a lot of people. I feel in Belgium there is still a lot that needs to be done, because when so many parents I speak with in my environment, they are still like, oh, my son or my daughter, they're behind their PC so much. I don't know what they're doing. Is there a future for them? And yeah, that still makes me feel that we need to do a lot from Belgium in here, although the major in Antwerp, I think, opens a lot of eyes for a lot of people. But I think esports and gaming is already built in with, I would say, almost every new kid that's coming in the digital world. When I went to school and I said I was playing games, people looked at me like a nerd, but when you go to school now and you say you don't play games, then people see you as being different. So for me, gaming is the same like doing soccer, watching TV, going to the movies. It is just something you do. And yeah, the question now is not, well, it's not anymore, do you play games? It's more like, oh, you play games. What kind of games do you play? Oh, you play Counter-Strike. I play it as well. Or you play Rocket League. Me too. Can we, after school, can we play some games? So, yeah, I think gaming, esports, it will be in our lives for the rest of our days. As long as the digital world exists, then gaming and esports will exist as well, and it will not slow down. It will only grow. And as long as there is some healthy balance, I would say, between how much time you're behind your PC and when you're doing other stuff, I think it's totally fine the direction it's going.
Okay, nice. And then we finish with the critical thinker every time. And this is if you were hired, well, you did it last year, but if you were hired by a startup or a brand that nobody knows, what would you do to start building that community from scratch in the first 30 days?
I wouldn't try to build my community from scratch, because that's the hardest thing there is. Because just being there in the open between all those other people that are trying to build a community, people are not just going to find you. So I think what I would do is I would find someone, a streamer, someone with a community that fits your brand identity, that fits your goals, and have a conversation with that person. Because most of the time when that person fits your brand identity, the community will also fit your brand identity, and then I would go into some collaboration with that person, and I would build from there. I think that's the biggest advice I can give. I have a lot of respect for anyone that tries it from scratch and that makes it work, but I think today this is 1,000 times harder than it was 10 years ago.
Because the competition is that much bigger.
Because the competition is that much, and I also feel it's a lot harder to find you. Like when you were streaming more than 10 years ago, and building a community shouldn't always be about streaming. You have a lot of platforms where you can do this. You can also create a Twitter account, you can create a TikTok account. So you have a lot of choices where you can build your community. But there is a lot of competition, yes, but it's also, there are so many platforms today where you can choose from that just doing something on one platform doesn't work anymore. And when you're doing something on 5 platforms, for example, then you will come to the question, like, how do we transition these people over from one platform to another? Because I didn't use Twitter for 5 years, for example, and I only started using it again when I went back to Esports and Heat.gg. And yeah, this so hard to do something right now in the digital world. And in a way, it's also easy because there are a lot of people, but building a community in the digital world today, I find it's very hard.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. And thank you so much for this conversation, Tim. I think I learned a lot. I think our listeners would also have learned a lot of non-conventional answers. I always love those. So thank you very much, and good luck with the upcoming tournaments, and hopefully the World Championship in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Actually, the end of the year, we already have the new chance. It's in Rio de Janeiro then. So our next goal is to qualify for that one. And it was really nice being here, Niels. Looking forward to see more of these kind of shows.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tim. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Class Community Show. If you liked this episode, make sure to subscribe to our channel on your preferred podcast platform. Looking forward to inspire you again on the next show.